Hi, in this video I'm going to talk about writing test scenarios and test cases for Spotify functionalities. I'll try to explain how I structure my test, what example I used, and most importantly, I will share some key findings from executed tests that failed. I perform dynamic testing and, to be precise, black box testing. I predominantly use equivalence partitioning as a technique, but in some cases, I also performed boundary value analysis, like for example, where you had to provide your date of birth. So I began writing my test scenarios using Trello, and I split Spotify functionalities in three different categories. So I have sign up, login, and also music search system. If we click on this list, I have created test scenarios for positive cases or valid test scenarios, and as well as invalid scenarios. All the ones that strike through, this is the one that I executed. But not all of them were executed because I just tried to keep the scope not too wide. So for example, compatibility scenarios I decided to omit, as well as the scenarios when the user doesn't have internet. So after that, I proceeded to go to Google Sheets, and here I copied all those test scenarios and wrote the test cases for them. Also, another thing to mention is the fact I performed these test cases and executed this test casing using macOS test environment. So if, for example, these tests were performed maybe on Windows and using Microsoft Edge, then the result will be a bit different because I use macOS with Google Chrome. So now I want to talk about how test cases are structured. After I copied all the test scenarios from Trello, pasted them here, and they define as the big integer number with the bold text. So it's a test scenario 1, 2, 3, etc. The test cases, they've written with a decimal number. So test case 1, 2, 3. So there's the action. For example, you need to navigate to the sign up page, provide valid email address, press next button. Quite straightforward. Also, another column is dedicated to test data, the data I use to test those test scenarios. The expected result, that are my assumption what the results should be. The status, did the test pass or fail? The actual results, as well as the priority, how important this test is to be perfectly working. Another thing is pre-requirements. I created pre-requirements so that I don't have to write it all the time. For example, the user needs to have internet in order to sign up. So this is the pre-requirements. It's like a priori that the user has an internet connection and has a valid email address. And this person is above 13 years old because on Spotify you need to be at least 13 to register. So now I would like to talk about the test scenarios that failed. I'm not going to cover all of them. I'm just going to cover the ones that I think the most interesting. And again, because it's a black box testing, I don't know how the system works in Spotify. So some of my assumptions maybe were a bit wrong, or now in retrospect I understand they were completely wrong. So the second test scenario that we have that failed, it's probably had to be in an invalid sign up rather than the valid signups group, because I presume you can register using non-Latin letters in your email address. So in this case, I use Cyrillic, which expectably fail. But that's fine. The first one that caught my attention was actually the invalid sign up. So this is the one. Validate sign up with non-existent email address. I presumed that in order to register on Spotify, you need to provide your valid email address, and then you will get the one-time password sent to your email where you will verify that this email belongs to you. But it wasn't the case, and technically you can register with any email address that even potentially doesn't exist. So this was my test data, me2123@kkil.com, and you can perfectly find where it's with this email address. So I will show it what I mean in a second. If you go to sign up page, this is in the Cognito, and in the field where we need to write the email address, we're going to just type some gibberish and add uk. Okay, UK, CK, for example. It will not accept it, but the good thing is, and quite clever, it suggests you have 3 different email addresses that you may be like misspelled, which I find is quite cool. And I would also assume, I mean, I'm going a bit forward, but I assume this feature will also work in the login, which I think would make a lot of sense as well. But when you paste it here, it doesn't give you 3 different options that you can select from, which I guess could be added as well. Again, if we're going back and we choose one of them, not always is accepted, but this one, for example, is accepted. I highly doubt this email just actually exists and belongs to somebody, but we can use it, and we don't, and Spotify doesn't send any verification, OTP, or anything like that, which I found a bit interesting. Next, we have a field where we need to create our password, and here I found two things that I want to discuss. Yeah, the first one is, again, so using non-Latin letters, and in my case I use Cyrillic. I don't know what to exactly say, if it's pass or failed. I put a block because right now, if I want to select the Russian, I can do it completely fine. But if we're going back to English, but have a look what happens when I press on the password field, and then if I want to change my language, the Russian disappears. So what I assume the developers wanted to do is to eliminate the possibility to use non-letters letters in your password creation. But again, if I press on this I button, if I press on the I button, press here again, now I have this possibility to write my password in Russian, which again, this is not what it meant to be, but you can completely fine using both languages in your password creation. That's one thing. And the second thing is about misleading UI. So if we're going back to my test cases and have a look. So this was the one, I think it was an invalid one. Yeah, so the first one, invalid text that I presume validate sign up with spaces only. Of course, this should not be allowed in your password creation, but one thing that I've noticed, and this is extra column that I have, is just notes, that space is considered as a special character. What I mean, so you see we have a box here saying one number, one special character needs to be present in your password creation. So if I press space, this is considered to be, it's definitely not a number, so it should be a special character. And this what I found a bit peculiar, because I think in most of the systems, space is not considered to be a special character. And yeah, so this is what I decided to memorize. And based on that knowledge, I've created another test scenario which says validate sign up with spaces as a special character. And this is one of the examples. We have letters, it's 10 characters long, and space, if it's considered to be as a special character, it should be accepted as a password. But unfortunately, it failed. Again, if we decided to go for more spaces, we get 2 characters, and in theory, we just need to provide 1 letter in order to match all the criteria. But how will we get this error message? Your password should contain at least 10 characters. We recommend including at least 1 number or 1 special character. So that means that the space is not a special character, however, the box is ticked. This is a bit misleading UI. I think this could be explained or elaborate a bit better. And if we use the actual special character or just the number, we can proceed to the new stage completely fine. That's one thing. The other thing is, again, maybe just the phrasing. Here down there, it's written, your password must contain at least. I mean, must is quite a strong word, but here it says we recommend. So do you recommend, or do you need to have this in order to register? Anyways, so yeah, for example, this is our password. Cool. And we can proceed to the next stage. Tell about yourself, step 2 out of 3. Another thing that I noticed is the fact you can't leave your name blank. You need to, again, use some sort of input, but even a space will be accepted. And I don't think this is defect or anything like that. But I found out when you finally register on Spotify, you'll be assigned to a unique user ID. So it doesn't really matter what your actual name is, because you can find a user based on his unique or her unique ID. So I guess this wasn't the priority, and yeah, but it still just looks a bit weird, the fact that your name can be completely blank. In the date of birth field, I use boundary value analysis to make sure the person can't be born on 31st of February, for example, and maybe 12 years old, because on Spotify you need to be at least 13 to register. There's another parameter that you need to be born at least in 19,000. So if I put 1899, you won't be able to register. It will say please enter birth year from 19,000 onwards. There's also a bit maybe a phrasing that they could maybe improve. So again, if we put 2000, what's it, 2012? So okay, 12, 13, you're too young because you're not turned 13 years old, which makes sense. But like if I put 2913, it still says the same thing. You're too young to create a Spotify, but realistically, you're not born yet. Maybe they could add a different if statement, like if I'm talking about the code. So for example, if the date is in the future, like in this example, 2019-13, the if statement could say, provide this string data, and the string would say, this is invalid date of birth, please provide a valid one. But if the date is not in the future, again, it could be 2024, 2025, or 23, and if you go below until you're 12, 13 years old, you can say you're too young to create a Spotify account. I mean, it's not a major issue, but just maybe a more accurate way of describing things. If we put 2012 and everything looks good, we can proceed to the new stage. Here, the last one, term and condition. There is only 2 tick boxes, up to you if you want to share your data with Spotify and prefer to receive marketing messages. Couldn't break anything here. It's up to you if you want to tick anything. So we can now finally sign up, which is great. That's cool. Also want to talk about login and invalid login, but I think I've already briefly mentioned the one thing that's the one of the test scenarios that didn't pass. And it was the one, I was an invalid one. Yeah, it was the one that I assumed it will suggest you 3 different email addresses that you probably meant if you misspelled your one. So this is only the one that failed. Everything else in the login section have passed. And now I want to talk about music search functionalities. So again, I use equivalence partitioning, and my goal was to, if we go to the main page, my goal was to find a specific song or specific artist based on the input that I put here in the search bar. I decided to use my taste data Blinding Lights by The Weeknd because it's a very famous song. There is not that many other songs called Blinding Lights. I assumed it should be in the top results. Again, on Spotify, you have different categories. You can, when you search, it could be all music, podcasts, audiobooks, maybe even more. But I decided, just for the simplicity, focus on all results. In all of these test scenarios, only a few actually the positive or the valid test scenarios is when you spell the name 100% correctly, so Blinding Lights. As we can understand, in the real scenario, many people, they're probably gonna misspell it or maybe write only half of the name of the actual song, but the algorithm needs to be smart enough to recognize what the user mean when they type it. Yeah, I should give some credit that the algorithm is really smart. Most of the tests have passed. I was even surprised the fact that when I was using Cyrillic, it still recognize it, or when I misspell it, even though there was a slight difference. So for example, if we use the actual name of the song, well, let's put it here, and yeah, it's number 1, and not a big surprise. However, if we again maybe misspell it or write it in Cyrillic, the song still will be a number 1 in the top. But here is the notes, the fact that this time the song will be in the top, not from the album, but as a single. So it's a different release, same song, but different release. I think it's this one that's number 3 at the moment. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a slight change. Interesting thing that I noticed. Also, what I found, again, when I search for the artist, many people would probably misspell The Weeknd with the END instead of ND. Again, Spotify algorithm is smart enough to understand this, even if we transcribe it to Cyrillic again, really great. Even if we use After Hours, there are probably quite a few songs called After Hours, but they might not be as relevant as the album itself from The Weeknd. So even if you type, this is still number 1. So one of the categories that I also tested was the lyric search, because in Spotify you can find a song based on the lyrics. And here was one interesting thing that I noticed. If we go to the, again, Blinding Lights, if we go here and look at the lyrics, so the first phrase I've been trying to call, let me copy it. this is spelled exactly the same as the lyric says. If we tap it here, the song should appear, and we can see the lyrics match. This is exactly the same song. But realistically, people can misspell it for many reasons. First, there is a shortened version I have, and also tryna. Here, if I type I have, okay, I noticed another thing. Because the Spotify that I just used was completely brand new and there is no music history, it didn't recognize the song. But when I played the Blinding Nights and when I used the full version of I have, it found it. So this is quite interesting. If you never play the song, it won't be in the top songs, which again, the algorithm is quite complicated. I don't know how it works. There was one thing that I realized, okay, it used the formal form of I have, and it recognizes. What about tryna? If I will try to type trying to, and I've tried many times, and again, I've played the song also many times, but I would never get in top results at all. So if we even go to songs, not even top results, you won't find it here at all. So if we scroll down, 40, 50, it's just not present. If we like week, and yeah, I mean, it's not in this list. Which again, I think they could add this form to the algorithm dictionary. So if somebody would spell it formally, trying to instead of tryna, the song still can be found. With the playlist, it was a bit on and off. Despite my pre-requirements were here that you are a brand new user with a new account, I decided to double with using my premium accounts, personal premium accounts, as well as non-sign-in accounts. When I use the playlist names, sometimes exactly the same playlist I was looking for was found. In some cases, it was a lyric match from Random Smashing Pumpkins podcast, and I decided it's not as important. So yeah, this is the exact playlist I was looking for that has the Blinding Nights by The Weeknd. I also assumed that you can find songs that are original soundtrack from the film, because in my personal Spotify, when I type Drive, I will get one of the famous songs from that film, Kavinsky by Nicole. And I thought Spotify has a even more complicated algorithm that knows that these songs belongs to this particular film. So if somebody types the name of the film, they'll get all the soundtrack from the films. But it wasn't the case. I then realized that if we type a Drive, of course, top results probably will be songs or artists that have the word Drive. So in this, Olivia Rodrigo, driver's license, fair enough. But there was another thing I realized: people creating playlists that has music from the film Drive, and that's how, because yeah, there is a Kavinsky, Nicole, and because I've played this song so many times on my personal Spotify, it's now starts to appear in my top results. And yeah, so there were other things that I was thinking to create test cases for genre search, mood search, producer search, etc. But I felt like it's hard to predict what the results are going to be, and again, it's not high priority task, and I decided to leave them on the side. So to sum up what I've done, I created test scenarios using Trello for Spotify sign-up, Spotify login, and Spotify music search. I copied all these test scenarios into the Google Sheets and wrote test cases for each one of them. Then I performed equational partitioning, or split the test scenarios on small different groups. So for sign-up, it's a first step registration where you provide the email, then second step of registration where you have to create a password, the third one where you need to provide a toolbar yourself, and etc. Or in the music search, it's split into groups: song name, album name, artist name, playlist name, lyrics, and so on. The tests were executed using macOS test environment and using Google Chrome as a browser. Most of the tests have passed, but there were a few that failed. And yeah, thank you for watching the video, and see you soon.